This video is going to help you understand some of the quirks of supporting as a BT. So there are a lot of weird interactions that aren't explicitly told to you in the skill descriptions, so that's why there might be a lot that you don't know at first for for this class. So BT is not as fluid as Bishop when it comes to supporting, because you have to do this little animation every time you want to switch into your support animal, um, and and while you're in this animal mode, you really don't do any damage. So you have to commit to supporting, um, unlike Bishop when you can just stance swap very quickly and still attack in your support mode. But thankfully, most of the offensive support that BT offers is naturally done while bursting. So as long as BT is bursting properly near all of their teammates, they're gonna provide everyone with a ton of FD. I think for most classes, the number comes out to like 30 FD for the full rotation, and it's even more for classes that scale with crit rate and HP, because BT does offer those bonuses as well. Um, yeah, but in terms of defensive support, that requires the BT to commit to support mode and not do damage for as long as they are supporting, with heals and dispels and whatnot. So it's not really a good idea to ever just stay in cat mode forever, especially because of the 5% damage requirement coming soon, and also BT cat mode has really bad mobility options, i.e. none. So so only use support mode when necessary. So let's talk about the specific uh, kinks and quirks of all the support tools. So let's talk about offensive support first. The first thing that adds damage to the party is cat auras. So these add some flat magic attack and attack. This adds crit rate and some crit damage. Um, this adds IED, and this adds some extra HP. And then these two are really just these don't do anything in combat. You might notice that when you first go into cat mode or pop a whistle, they don't come instantly, so it takes a while for them to show up. Why does that happen? Well, it's because the game doesn't check immediately when you're in cat mode or whatever to give you auras. It actually just checks every 10 seconds. When those 10 seconds happen, I don't know, but you do have to wait a couple seconds at least, most of the time, to get your cat buffs. However, it doesn't show here, but cat buffs actually linger. So when this 10-second check happens, you and everyone around you will get cat buffs. But the people that aren't around you that already had them, they don't lose them immediately. What happens is that when everyone gets cat buffs, it actually has like some kind of invisible buff timer. It's around like 40 seconds. So when they are away from you, they just, they still have cat buffs for about, for like a couple more seconds because of that invisible buff duration. So you don't have to worry about constantly being around your teammates because of this mechanic. And also, what happens for the BT is not indicative of what happens for your party members. So for me, if I switch out of cat mode without whistle active, I will lose auras instantly, but I just said, party members don't lose them instantly. And additionally, when you have whistle granting you cat auras, you will have them persist for, the extra 40 seconds once whistle expires, until you switch into cat mode and then switch out again. Then it will act normally and you'll lose them instantly. And then the next thing is the meow card and the hawk buffs. So these are like the 3-minute buffs that you can give party members. So they will buff the party members you're close to, but you might notice again, what happens for the BT is not what happens for the party members. So when I switch out, I lose hawk buffs, but I keep meow card because that's just how meow card works. But I lose hawk buffs instantly. However, that is not true for the party members around me. They will keep hawk buffs for the rest of the duration. It doesn't matter if I'm not in the party anymore. It doesn't matter if I change the map or channel. So you can use these buffs to pre-buff your friends before they enter the boss without having to join them in the boss. This also applies for auras, but because auras have a shorter duration, it's not really useful except for the first burst. By the way, meow card provides +2 attack speed, and this attack speed bypasses the soft cap. So this can function as a green pot for your teammates. The next thing I really want to talk about is Cradle. So Cradle is like your bootleg domain. It gives 20 final damage through a debuff mechanism for your party members. Cradle itself will place down a summon in the immediate area, and that summon will continuously damage monsters in the area, and when that damage happens, that's when the debuff is applied. Note that the debuff can be reapplied as long as the summon keeps doing damage, and also this is a very important interaction to understand, but the summon will not do actual damage if you're not in cat mode. This applies whether you have whistle on or not. The summon does not do damage unless you are in cat mode, and it will be confusing at first because the game will tell you that there's always damage lines being dealt, but this damage is just a visual bug, and you won't see the debuff unless you're in cat mode. I'm going to demonstrate that really quickly by switching out of cat mode too soon before the summon is actually there. So look, you can see damage lines, but the debuff isn't there. And when I switch back into cat mode, now it's actually doing damage. And my Fatal Strike even procced to tell you that it actually did damage. So just be careful whenever you're casting Cradle. If you have a different burst rotation than the one I talked about in my other video, you might be switching out of cat mode right after pressing Cradle. So you just need to be careful to give Cradle that time to do the damage and inflict the debuff. Also, if you've seen my burst video, this is why I use playing in cat mode. That extra time that I spend in cat mode naturally inflicts the debuff and even refreshes it for a couple seconds without being much of a DPS loss. So yeah, those are the quirks about Cradle. The last bit of offensive support that BT has to offer is IED debuff. At max level, it's a 40 IED debuff. However, you have to be in cat mode to cast this skill, And this debuff has a very short duration. It only lasts 12 seconds. So it's not that good to have it. I mean, you already provide your teammates with some IED through your cat auras, so this isn't really that necessary. If you do literally no damage and you're running a boss for some reason, then you can use this Fire Kitty skill, but otherwise you can just ignore this. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about are the defensive support tools that BT has. So one of the things BT has is a revive skill, which will revive everyone in the AoE. So at first glance, this will seem very underwhelming because if you've played Bishop or Paladin before, you'll know that their revives don't grant their teammates any extra lives, really. That extra life is kind of only useful for like acting like a respawn token, so they respawn in the same place if they died during their roar. But even though our revive does not give an iframe to the revived people like theirs does, it actually does give them an extra life. So you'll find that if you try to revive somebody, the next time they will die, their death count does not go down. And this basically means you have a bootleg door that can stack on top of actual Bishop door, so that will give your teammates lots of lives. And this skill can even be cooldown skipped, so it synergizes really well with cooldown skip IA and also Buccaneer. By the way, in the same token, we synergize really well with Buccaneer because Buccaneer cooldown skips our Resurrect skill, but it also cooldown skips our Self Door, which is really interesting because doors usually aren't cooldown skippable. But yeah, so having a Buccaneer and BT adds a bajillion lives into the party all of a sudden. It feels like cheating. Okay, the next thing about BT's support that I'd like to talk about, defensive support, I mean, is the heal. So the heal is spammable, 0 cooldown unconditionally, and whereas Bishop's heal is in a AoE, BT's heal is in front of them. However, this hitbox is very deceptive. It might look like it's like a rectangle in front, but it's actually just a one-dimensional line on the ground. So if your teammates literally aren't standing on the exact same elevation as you or the platform as you, you're not going to be able to heal them. So if they're jumping, they won't get healed. Additionally, because of lag, what you see on your client might not reflect the accurate positions of your teammates. So you might be trying to heal them on your screen, but it's still not going through, even if they're not moving. That might be because of server desync. So it's a good thing this skill has 0 cooldown because you'll definitely need to spam it for it to actually work. And you might wonder what this 20% means. I think it means 20% of your damage range. It usually just heals everyone to full unless you're in Seren Sunset phase or Black Mage outside of the bubble or whatever in P3. Yeah. Also, this skill works through Zombify. Bishop's healing kills people that are zombified, but this skill does not. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is the Dispel. So the Dispel is on a fixed 5-second cooldown, and it functions basically like Bishop's Dispel, so it cures Reverse and Zombify and Dryness. Yeah, so it basically functions the same, but it has no cast animation. So if you are bursting in plane in cat mode, for example, you can just like very quickly dispel any ailments on your party or yourself. Maybe if you have a blindness debuff or something. You can also use it while ducking, which is useful, I guess, in Seren when you have a reason to be ducked sometimes. and there's also like status ailments that you can cure all the while. And it can also be used while you're sealed, just like Heroes Will. By the way, Heroes Will for Beast Tamers does provide the immunity. It just doesn't say it in the skill description. So that is the spell, and the last bit of defensive support that BT offers is the tree. So if you use Champ Charge in cat mode, it will spawn a tree that reduces all damage taken from for all of your party members in the radius by 40%. So this helps them tank a lot more things. Additionally, it will heal yourself only by like 25% or something every second. And then the tree itself lasts 10 seconds. This has an instant cast animation. This has an instant cast time, but it has an animation that like plants the tree down. This is just a visual thing, however, because the buff itself applies immediately in the AoE. So let's look. Keep an eye on my buff bar. I'm going to cast down tree and then move into it, and then I had it before the tree even showed up. So this is a very nice reactionary tool. It can be useful in places like Saren Sunset Phase, where where full map pillars can put your teammates on notice, and this can protect them, assuming you do it early enough for them to receive it, even after lag and whatever. But because Tree and Yarn are like both in front of you, the nice position to be in to support your team is facing them, like having them in front of you, basically. Also, the thing about Tree's hitbox is that it does not have any downwards range, but it has a pretty good upwards range. Basically, this means don't use it in the air. So I'm going to use it in the air and show you how bad it is. So I'm like trying to be right under it and I'm not getting it. But when I'm like above it, like right here, I'm like a little bit above the tree and I still have the buff. So yeah, that's the hitbox for Tree. And I guess another thing you have is when you burst in aerial relief, it heals your teammates. That's kind of nice to have. But other than that, I don't think you really have that much more defensive support to offer. So yeah, that has been an explanation of all the quirks and weirdness with BT support. So I hope you have learned from this video. Thanks for watching.